Today I'm visiting one of my old stomping grounds, which goes way back to when I was a kid. This is Cushendall on the Antrim coast in Northern Ireland, and it's a place where my mum was born and bred, and as a result of that I spent a lot of holidays, a lot of time here when I was particularly as a kid, and somewhere I'm very fond of returning to. So one of the things I'd worked out here was a nice little 10k run. It's a funny thing, it's like an hour's drive to get here, to do an hour's run, to drive home for an hour. But there's just something about revisiting Cushendall that has a strong appeal to me. So I'm going to share that with you. It's not just a 10k, doing the 10k run. I'm going to waffle a lot, going to talk about my favorite spots. So this video is done in a couple of sections, in that I've already done a bit of recording on various parts of this course. Today I'm here to do the actual 10k run and pick up a few other bits and pieces. So this one's been spread out over a lot of weeks and a lot of visits up here. Partly, one of the amusing things was my very first video that I did was up here, but I made a mess of camera settings and hadn't a clue what I was doing. But I've had a bit more practice, so let's see how this goes. I always start the run from Cushendall Boat Club. There's a handy car park, toilet block, but most importantly there's a little coffee shop for whenever you finish, assuming you've earned your cup of coffee, and Carmel Square. We head out along the coastal path, which goes through the caravan park, out the far side, along the coast. There's a little ruin just about there. We'll be on the cliff path just above that, and a little bit beyond that there's the track sweeps into the left to Lade Church, and then we start going inland. The sun's shining today, there's a bit of a breeze, but there's been a 5% chance of rain today according to the Met Office, and it's just generally been raining on and off for the past hour. So let's get out and see what Cushendall has to offer. As you follow along the coastal path, you eventually cross the bridge over the River Dall, which is roughly the centre of this picture. To the right of that you can see the clubhouse for the golf club. Now what's fascinating here is the width of the river where it joins the ocean. At the moment the tide is in, so it's actually quite substantial, but if you compare this to a photograph taken many years ago, where there's a little bridge just to the right here. Quite fascinating how that works. But it's because so much sand was removed from this beach many years ago, it totally transformed the appearance of the place and has had this major environmental impact on what we see today. Cushendall Beach has reduced by some 45 metres as a result of the sand removal. And it was necessary to build the defence wall that is there today in order to help retain what remains. Now, while we're looking at vintage photographs of Cushendall, this little guy is me playing on the beach with my cousin Margaret and my granddad James Spence some 59 years ago. Goodness. So just before you start to go up the hill off-road, as it were, there's an amusing sign about the cliff path that says that it was constructed as part of an ACE scheme back in 1991. Now, I used to play on this when I was a kid, less than 10 years of age. I have a photograph of my mother sitting on a park bench up on the path. And if she was still alive, she was well into her 90s, so the path was not constructed in 1991. So, as you can see, the start of the path here, which runs on up over the hill there, but hidden away to one side is actually the start of the original cliff path. It's a little bit overgrown, but we'll venture in and you'll see that there is actual signs of civilization as you come through this way. It is a bit overgrown, not very well maintained, so underfoot there's a bit of a bank to one side, quaint little seat, lots of overgrown bushes, which could be a bit on the jaggy side, so just mind how you go. But gosh, look at that view. Even on a day like today, which has been raining, it's such a cool spot. But as we follow on through the bush, through the wilds, you come across more evidence that this was once a genuine trail. A marvellous tree there, and its brother down at the bottom there. That's I think called Salmon Rock. Yeah, another popular spot for fishermen. So when we squeeze down through the wilds, you start to see a bit more civilization. There's some steps up ahead over the little rise here. So when you go up over the rise, might also be a wee bit of a trail up in there, but we're not going to try that one today. You can see I'm walking on steps here. Careful underfoot. When I was young, those enormous leaves used to cover this entire area, and you used to go in there and play like you were in a jungle. There's a big rock somewhere in there that you could stand up on, and it would give you a view over the top of these giant leaves. As you can see, they disappeared for a while, but they seem to be coming back like some prehistoric vegetation. I would suggest if you don't have good leg cover, perhaps this isn't the way to come. And obviously there's a few areas with a wee bit of steep ground at the side, likely to fall to your doom. So there's where you can come up, and there's a wee stream and a quaint little bridge. Somebody's actually going to bother maintaining this bridge at some point. But there's the rather hidden bit of jungle. But as you can see, worth exploring. If you're the exploring type, if you don't mind getting your legs wet, getting your shoes wet, and the odd scrape from the brambles. Oh, just missed a rabbit there. And here we have the standard of the cliff path as it follows round towards Lade Church. Really a glorious place to go running. I met a jogger once in the car park whenever I finished a run, and he always insisted on doing this run in the opposite direction, because as you come along the cliff path you get this view in front of you, and I absolutely get what he's saying. For some strange reason it's just established in my head as doing it in an anti-clockwise direction. But his suggestion was, if you're doing this, go the other way and pick up this view on the way back down. So there's a lot to be said for that. Here we have some Viper's bugloss, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, known to many as trivets. I can't say you see these too often, but there's a little nest of them here, looking quite cool, but not very foreign looking, as if they shouldn't quite be there. But it's like everything from this wee spot of Ireland. Everything's really cool. The scenery, the backdrop, the rig. Isn't it just? So we've got Port Vinegar down below us there. You can see there's a natural brae there for bringing in a boat, and a couple of outbuildings. One of the suggestions that I remember somebody making was that it was might have been a smoking house for the salmon or whatever was brought in there. You can also see just the remains of an old slipway. The concrete is well broken up, but you can walk here right along the beach from the background there right along. Even I think when the tide's in, you can still just about make it through there. There's a little step over there that takes you up into that spot. Now the thing is, you can't go any further as you go around the corner. There were a couple of people who went out that way over the steep part just between here and Lade and had to be rescued a couple of years ago. But as you can see, there's a lot to be said for running this little loop in the opposite direction. Or if you're running, stop every now and then and take in the scenery. And if you're walking, bring your picnic. So it's all a wee bit overgrown today, but between the last bridge as you head round and the gate, you might just be able to see the gate post up ahead, because this is June and very wet weather. The little trail is kind of overgrown and disappeared. So for the good of video making, let's see if we can get through here. Now there were actually picnic benches out to the left hand side here, I recall, which had fallen apart. I've been on this quite a few times. Would have been down here as a child back in the good old days when you were sent out the front door for the day, and we'd often played. I have still very fond memories of being out and exploring, and my cousins who lived down here, joining up with them and getting to know the area and make a few friends. But you can see here that there's definitely a trail. There's just the remains of some steps that I've just come over. Now it's starting to be a bit more distinctive. You can see the individual steps as I keep slipping on them. And on my left, it just runs down the back of Lade Church. There's a stream with a couple of little waterfalls. You can just hear it through the bushes. A little babbling brook. Oh, very cool and very hidden. So this is where we're turning right. And I think you were following the river down. It does a zigzag. Doing a few footings you have to be careful of. So if you're out with a family and a pram and the toddlers, I don't think I could recommend this. But if you're the exploring type, for goodness sake, get down here. But again, leg cover, absolutely. Lots of these guys just waiting to catch you. So you need the leg cover. Remember a little bridge down at the bottom It was doesn't seem to be there anymore. Sorry, ducks, for disturbing your slumber. There used to be a little bridge. You can just see a bit of concrete in there. We went across, but it's not sure what condition it's in. So here we have a marvellous little bay, which you can't get at from coming around the coast safely. What about this? I have to confess, 2 years ago I was here on New Year's Day with my Kathy, and Kathy being Kathy thought, let's strip off and jump in the sea, just as you do on a quiet little beach. So we did keep our underwear on, just in case anybody gets upset and starts to leave complaints, and jumped in and had a blast. And we did have a guy up on the top of the cliff up there who was giving us a round of applause. But what a cool little spot. Another natural harbour where it's a great spot to take a boat up in there. I really must get a kayak out someday and kayak from Cushendall across the Cushendall and do a little visit in here.
Come on in, the water's lovely.
So they say. I normally take about 10 minutes to get into the cold water, but as soon as a camera, I'm going to have to just go for it. So, dedication this is. Look, a mermaid. Goodness, civilization. What a blast that was. So here we are, as we come up off the path. We got a little fork, left and right, but you gotta turn right and have a look at this place. A state monument, no less. Not just a monument. Marvellous old style from the good old days, a famous cross hidden in there. Some really old tombstones going way back, but this is a well documented place. You get plenty of websites and videos and such things. A Celtic cross up there, and there's the good old Celtic cross. With biblical scenes depicting various things. I remember when I was a kid, the sculpture had put a little fly into the corner of one of the sculptures. I could never find it in recent times. As you come out of Lade, there is a car park, and when you come out of the car park you come on to a relatively quiet country road but for 100 metres or so when you turn left, it's a 60 mph speed limit. Now there's a bit of a grass verge you can keep in on if you keep to the right hand side. On the way down from Lade on the main road, we come to a bit of a crossroads, more of an off-road crossroads, which I think was the original road that took you to Cushendall back in the day. Now we're turning left here, and you can see on the left a really well kept garden, most impressive, worth a little glance. On this side with all this glorious vegetation and a nice rugged grass up the middle of the road, kind of road to run on. So this is where the cliff path continues on. This is the road that takes you to literally the start of the beach. So if you don't want to go over all that rough stuff that I showed you that was overgrown, you can come up here and hang a right. And if you remember, this is where we came up and went out round this piece. So if that's overgrown down there, you can still do this walk. Just stick with that other main path. We head down the main path, the old Cushendall road, back to the start of the beach. But we head straight on along the shore road back into town, past the car park, past the toilet block, until we meet the end of Lade Road. Here we turn right into Cottage Wood and pick up one of the two paths. There's the upper path from the steps and the lower path, but they both lead back to the playground and Hill Street. The short detour through Cottage Wood is really worth it. Just a very pleasant run through the trees, but it's quite short. And it takes you out into a car park with a playground, and that's where we meet the main road again. So although I'm doing a map at the end, I just thought I'd slot this in just to explain where we've been going so far. So there's fuoco.ogg, there's Lade Church, there's that little car park. So we have followed on down Lade Road to the bend in the road, and this is where we pick up the old road, the old Cushendall road, where it leads us back down to the edge of the shoreline. Stay with the shore road where it passes Lade Road again, and this is where we nip into the wood. You can see the lower path and the upper path. It takes you around to the car park and the playground here, and then we drop back down. The route I used to take coming out of Cottage Wood was when I went out onto the road, instead of going down the hill, I turned right and went up the hill, and then you come to like a staggered crossroads and drop down the hill till you meet the main road coming in from Cushendall direction. Now the problem with that is about 150 metres of 60 mph road. It's kind of a busy road, so that's the route that I normally did. The route I actually ran today, I've never run it before in that form. So I normally didn't do the mucky trail up towards Lurig, which is used incidentally in the Lurig run. But that's what we're doing today. So when we come out of the woods, we turned left and dropped down the hill to the crossroads and turned right at the old tower. Now we've run out as if we're heading to Cushendall, and taking a slight detour towards us through a car park and into this church. So church, path, river, you can hear the river. Cool little bridge. River looking very dramatic today. This bridge takes across to another path on the other side. It follows up onto the main road. It takes you up and towards Glenballyhaman past Lurig, which we'll be just briefly going on to it at one point. As we go up here slightly, just to save on the fast forward button. Little sprint up the hill. When we get to here, we go left. There's been a bit of tree felling recently, hence the yellow tape. But we go down this path, follow the river, and it takes us out to the next bridge. As we come up through this little detour, still think it's worth it for all that. There isn't much to it, but it's a nice little variation from cutting through the town. We pop out onto a footpath. So this little steep bit with lots of steps, and if you're running it and you make it to the top, good on you. As we get to the top of the laneway, we hit the top of a T-junction in the road ahead. So two options here: shortcut, go straight on, you go past a lot of houses, and then it gradually fades out and you go past the monument on the left, and then you meet the road where we'll be coming back in on today. The option to taking the Middle Park Road is to go up this marvellous track, and here we get a very good view of the destination and the surrounding countryside, and some of the local cows. When we get to the end of the rather hilly Killinadore Road, we join the main road momentarily, but there's a grass verge on your left hand side which will keep you off the busy road. Then we hang left into Middle Park Road. It's another 60 mph speed limit, but it's a much quieter road. When we get to the end of the road, there's a T-junction or an actual bend to the left and a road to the right. We're going right here to drop down onto the main road and pick up a footpath back into Cushendall. If you took the shorter cut, you come past the house if you went straight on at that T-junction and didn't take the longer route to the right. Most of that walk is on a 30 mph speed limit with a footpath. There's a couple of hundred metres here on the 60 mph. But it's a quiet road, as you can kind of see. So if you're worried about the 60 mph longer road that we just came in on, this is a viable option. Here we are, the other side of the road that isn't suitable for heavy goods vehicles. It's also not suitable for cars, as I've learnt to my peril. There's two walls which narrow the road down, and it's difficult to get through. Anyway, my run comes down onto this bit of road. This is a busy road, so look left and right again before crossing over. We have Waterfoot there just on the other side of the river, Glenariff on the far side, and just look at those marvellous hills. And here we have the famous archway at Red Bay, which there's a great photograph of a horse and cart coming through there back in the good old days. And Red Bay Pier used to be a summertime ferry from there over to Scotland. Because particularly on a clear day, you can just see Scotland over on the horizon over there. So there we have the monument on top of the hill, just above the archway at Red Bay, and the pier down below, and the coastal road with footpath all the way back in, and you get a pleasant view all along the coast as you plod back in again. It's been a very pleasant day between the showers. We're back in Cushendall at the boat park. Cool spot, especially if you've got a caravan. It's quite handy, and if you're into boating, there's a handy pier there. It's got a lot going for it. It has an amazing history. Cushendall itself, the centre of town, is full of listed buildings. Fascinating place, fascinating history. There's a plaque up here that you could almost miss. It's worth looking all that up. Some souls from Cushendall who were lost. But there we have it. I forgot to mention about the mobile coffee shop. It also does ice creams. It's dreadful. So I burned about 1,000 calories there, so here we go again. I'm going to run through the map. You can see the circle there at the car park, and just to have an idea of height gained. Obviously run along the shoreline's fairly flat, but once you hit the Cushendall Road, things start to climb a little bit until you get past Lade. Then you run back down Lade Church Road, and a little gain again as you go through Cottage Wood, and then steep downhill into the centre of the town. It's not until we start to head out basically on what I've been referring to as the Lurig Run that it's a fairly steady climb up that long straight road, but then it's like everything, back downhill again, and then a very flat run back in to the start.